Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Talking Triathlon, where we talk about triathlon. I love it's very Australian of us to give the most literal name for our podcast. I am that Australian voice you're hearing, Tim Ford, and the not Australian voice that you're about to hear is my very good friend, James Bale. Jimbo, how you going, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm really looking forward to this weekend of racing that we're heading into. But yeah, life's not too bad. But we are recording on a Monday because got a very busy week ahead, lots of travel. And as our recording schedule dictates due to time zones, I record in the evening, you record in the morning, and my evenings are just full from tomorrow onwards. So thank you for accommodating a slightly earlier recording time.
No, it's good. So we just actually recorded a bonus episode for our patrons for last month because, as I said last time we were on the show, I had some stuff come up, so we couldn't do last week. And anyway, it's a whole thing. But we discussed doping in triathlon. We discussed other things, some just things we've heard about. So as always,
Drama.
it's a sorry.
Drama.
Drama in commas. But yeah, if you want to hear our bonus show, head to patreon.com/talking triathlon where you get all the good stuff. WhatsApp group. It's a great time to be in the WhatsApp group. You can talk about how shit the broadcast is at Ironman races with us in the WhatsApp group, especially for South Africa and stuff. But genuinely, it's a good place to chat all things triathlon as well as support the podcast. Jimbo, mate, I cannot remember because we didn't record last week. As I said, the week before, I had to do that crazy trip to Norway. But a fair bit has happened. But have you? I cannot remember have you told everybody that you're not racing London yet, or is that I can't remember where we
Yeah, I
said that or
think
not.
so. I think
Okay.
I think we did that on the show before last. Yeah. Due to a hip injury, I've had to defer the London Marathon to 2026, but they are allowing that deferral because it's a charity place. So that deferral is arranged. So anybody that has donated to the charity, your donations are safe, and it will just roll into 2026.
Now I'm going to bully you, and I'm going to weaponize our audience against you as well, because at the end of the bonus episode just then, you talked about the fact that you're planning on doing a 25-kilometer trail run this weekend with a hip injury. So I think it's a stupid idea, and I want all of our listeners, if you're hearing this, at bale.james85 on Instagram, DM him. Don't be an idiot. Don't do the run. Go
Yeah,
and
no, I'm
have
just
beers
going
and
to
burgers instead.
I may go and have some beers and burgers this weekend and not do that run, but yeah. But anyway, how are you, mate?
I am surprisingly well, considering I did like 5-day trip to Europe last week, for sad reasons too. But yeah, I'm okay, to be honest. The trip wasn't quite as bad as I expected. I think it's more the stuff around the trip that really you sort of pay the price for. It's all the preparation and the anxiety, and then being there, it was quite emotional while we're in Norway, and then literally just jumping straight on a plane again back. And so it's been a little bit chaotic. I actually slept through to my alarm this morning, which was a novelty, as opposed to waking up at 3:34 a.m. the last couple of days. So things I suppose are good, but I mean, I got back, and my inbox was just, let's have a little bit of a sook. It's my podcast. I can do what I want. What is with it when you put an out of office? You're putting out of office saying, "Hi, I'm on leave from these days, so I won't be checking my emails. If anything is urgent, please message me on WhatsApp or whatever." And people will send you something, so they'll get the out of office saying, "Hi, I'm on leave," and then several days send a follow up saying, "Hey, just following up on this," and you're like, "My dude, I'm on leave. I don't know what you were expect. You got the out of office twice." So I even checked with people like, did you get my out of office? Like, yeah, yeah. I'm like, okay, so this person definitely got it. I just,
Yeah,
what's with that? What's with that?
yeah, it's a strange world we live in, and people expect you to be available 24/7. It was yeah, it's a strange world. Welcome back.
Well, welcome back. Other than that, though, I think yeah, everything seems to be going pretty well. My training is picking up, which is good. Billy is godsend, mate. I'm absolutely loving. I can highly recommend Billy Harris. I think he's an excellent coach. Yeah, I'm very pro Billy. So if anybody's looking for a coach, always check out Good Vibes Coaching. Billy Harris, he's a good guy. Big recommend from me. But back into it this week, which is nice. The running is finally starting to feel good again. For fucking months, my running was an absolute slog, and I know this is probably insensitive of me to say to you, considering your hip injury, but I'm back to a point where I can actually just run, like, comfortably at like 4:45 pace now, which is, pretty much just jogging for me now, and it actually just feels nice. Like I'm out there actually enjoying things. So it's a good place to be back. Swimming is frustrating as always, but slowly
Fuck
coming back to
swimming.
it. But yeah, I got to swim. Big swim today, 3.5K. So that'll be
Mm.
fun. And then 5K. I saw you put a 5K swim on Thursday. I'm just like, you motherfucker. Like,
Yeah, they're never fun. They're never fun. Whenever I
God,
had to do a 5K swim, I was always racing the swimming pool closing time because it was like the longest the pool would be open was about the time I could do a 5K swim in. So I was just racing and racing to get that done.
exactly. That's genuinely what it is half the time. It's like trying to fit it in. And I don't know about you, but I also find that when I go to the pool, I always allocate certain time, and then I don't seem to factor in the fuckering around about
Yeah, yeah.
getting in,
Getting
getting
in,
out,
getting
the
changed, getting
recoveries.
wet.
So I always
Yeah.
get in, then I'm like, okay, I've got to be out of the pool by 12:30, and then I'm like, I'm only two-thirds of the way through the swim. It's 12:30. What's going on? So then you like start to rationalize, like, okay, I'll cut out the cool down, I'll shorten the recoveries. You sort of start to make the little sacrifices just to try to get through the swimming time. So, but anyway, that's that. Jimbo, there is plenty to talk about this week, but I have roped in friend of the podcast, Joe Skipper, who's going to join me to talk about all the action from Geelong over the weekend, as well as preview in South Africa. Now, the reason I thought this would be a good thing to do was I did a preview episode for those two races with Joe on Joe's new podcast, Junkyard Dogs, 2 weeks ago. I will put a link to that episode in our show notes, or on, if it's on YouTube, it's below now. So you can go there and listen to what me and Joe thought would happen, mostly about Geelong. And then we'll, this week, I hope, we haven't recorded it yet, sort of discuss about how wrong he was and how right I was, which will be fun. And then we'll talk through Ironman South Africa, which is happening this weekend. But before we cut to that, is there anything you'd like to, do you have any thoughts, anything you'd like to say about either the race or things that have come up this weekend just before we did cut to Joe?
No, I mean, really, I'm quite excited to see how South Africa shakes out. I think the field is both the men's and women's field are interesting. The men's field is particularly deep. I'm intrigued as to how it's gonna roll out. I think at the end of the bonus episode we talked about it a little bit. Jamie Riddle is going to have a huge impact on that race. He's going to
Yeah.
string that swim out, and then he's going to go for it on the bike. That is going to string the field out, and we're going to see an interesting dynamic play out as people make their way back through the field. And yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for an early season race with a field that makes me that excited.
I'm not going to ask you to pick the podium, but who's your winner? Is it Magnus or is it Marten Van Riel or is it somebody else?
It's an interesting one. I am going to. I
I'm
think
always
Martin Van
thinking.
Riel would be a hard man to beat.
Yeah, I do too. I just think his run is just. I think that if he's, yeah, I mean, I've picked Martin for the win. I think I picked Martin for the win as soon as I saw he was on the start list. So
But I
yeah,
mean,
I
there
think
are there are there are people there. Did I cut out then?
no, no, he's still here.
No,
He's still
good.
with us.
My phone started ringing and started ringing on my laptop. So yeah, there are people there that on their day could have a really good day. Magnus is obviously there. Um, Obviously Rasmus, defending champion, is there, and he's going in hot. So there are people that are looking for Kona slots. What I think it's five deep, isn't it? So
Nice,
top
nice
five
slots,
Kona slot. Hey,
nice slots.
yeah, knee slots. Yeah, that's fucking Kona's the umbrella world for world championship. You know what I mean? Um, and yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on the race. It's going to be interesting, and I am going to watch.
Perfect. Well, I will drop in Joe Skipper and we'll be back afterwards. Well, as we just said, we are joined this week by a friend of the podcast, regular guest, friend of mine. Just started his own new podcast, which I was on a recent episode of. It is, of course, Joe Skipper, the junkyard dog himself. Mate, how you going, Joe?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Yeah, on my podcast, I end up talking to myself, don't I? I can't find anyone to talk.
Joe's so nice, you get him twice. That's all you can say. How's it going, mate? What's happening?
Yeah, it's good, thanks. Just heading down to the airport today to stay the night before flying out to Oceanside tomorrow. Really looking forward to it, to be honest. Like after seeing the season kick off, I mean, with Geelong, which we'll talk about in a little while, and then seeing the hype for South Africa. The season's now kind of fully in full flow, isn't it? And it's really motivating to get started myself. But yeah, I'm feeling good, mate. I'm just looking forward to just starting another race, really.
Well, look, I mean, we're here to talk about Geelong, and again, for everybody who hasn't already listened, I was on an episode of Junkyard Dogs maybe 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, where we previewed both Geelong and Ironman South Africa. We didn't get to go all the way through South Africa. I had to run, but uh, I'll put a link to that. So go and listen to that conversation because I think we're going to probably refer to that a fair bit during this chat. But before we talk about that, mate, like it was a couple of weeks ago now. You had your first Ironman back in quite a while, Ironman New Zealand. I was over there. Rather successful day for you, mate. Like, how are you feeling post Ironman? You know, does it feel good to have the sort of the monkey off your back a bit? Like, where's your head at after that result?
Yeah, it does feel good to get a decent result, and obviously going into the season now, it's like when you're training over the winter, you're always like, am I going? How well am I actually going? Because obviously you see your power numbers and stuff like that on the bike, but then you don't know how it would compare to other power meters. You know, if you're using a different power meter, so you're kind of like, am I going that well or not? You know, it's almost untested, isn't it, until you get into the race, because ultimately it doesn't really matter what you do in training. It's all about how you do on race day compared to everyone else. So it's good to get a decent result in. And obviously compared to how I went in 2020, I think I was 6 or 7 minutes faster. And I would say the days were pretty comparable, to be fair. You know, like the run was faster when I did it this year, but then the bike was faster the other year because there was no wind. So if you averaged it out, it would probably be fairly similar. It was a shame not to beat Mike. To be honest, I was surprised that he went that well. I was talking to someone about this yesterday, and getting off onto the run, I would have thought that it was going to be come down to me and Jack Moody, and I
Hmm.
wouldn't have expected Mike to run 2:40, you know, before the race, especially off like going that well on the bike, you know, breaking away from the others. So yeah, he did really well, and I guess like my result was pretty decent. Like if you'd have asked me that before the race, I'd probably took it. But yeah, it was definitely a decent way to start the season, and obviously to go faster than you've ever gone before there means that you've hit the race in the best form you've ever hit at the start of the year, doesn't it? You know, because I've been there 4 years and 4 times, and I've never gone so fast. But looking at Geelong as well, before we go into full details about that, but one of the guys that I was riding with in New Zealand, Ben, had a really good ride in that race, and that was actually quite a good confidence booster because me and him swam together, so we ended up riding for quite a lot of the race. And then seeing him actually manage to break away, and get to the front group actually made you think, well, if he did that and I was riding with him in New Zealand, then there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to ride so well in a 70.3. So that was quite a good confidence booster.
I'm laughing. I can't help myself. I'm laughing because we've discussed this a few times offline. But do you want to give the listeners a bit of insight into what riding with Ben Hill was like in Topol?
So like when I was riding with him, like Ben's like really savvy rider. Like he used to ride on like a pro cycling team, development team, and he was actually on the same team as Pogačar. So like he obviously knows his stuff, and he's really good tactically. So you'll never get him doing more work than what he has to, and he'll be really savvy with when he puts the effort in. So when we were riding towards the end of the first lap, me and him hadn't done that much at all on the front of the group. I mean, we were keen to, but like I said to one of the guys when we were in the group, let's do 5 minute turns, and then we'll go to and then we'll all take turns, you know, keep the pace high. So I did a turn and then went to the back. And then I was expecting the guys that were on the front to do the same, do a turn on the front and then join the back. But they wouldn't. They would just keep it amongst themselves. So I'm kind of like, well, I'm not going to burn a load of matches and overtake four people just to get to the front to sit there. You know, like if you want me to do a turn, you kind of need to all rotate round so we all can get on the front. So they didn't do that. So me and Ben were like, all right, pace is all right. We'll just kind of save our energy, I guess. And then it got to the hill where you go up for about 15K, something like that, towards the start of the town, and then you descend into the bottom of Taupo, and then you turn around and you go up a hill again. And it's not like a really steep hill, it's kind of like a bit draggy for about 15 kilometers. And I thought to myself, this is a great opportunity to really work hard here because we might be able to put some decent time into the chase pack, I mean, into the front pack in not too much, in not that long a space. So I worked really hard, did a 20-minute effort that was pretty hard, and it ended up being just me and Ben. We actually broke away from the group that we were in, like not really trying to. It was more about putting time into the lead group, but we didn't actually put any time into the lead group. So obviously they must have done the same thing. So we came out of transit, we came back up the hill again. So now we're on to the second lap, and it was me and Ben. And I said to him, "Come, mate, it's me and you now. Like we can work together and ride there." He was really keen, and he did a turn, and then I did a turn, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I just need I knew that I was probably going to outrun this guy because I had an idea of what he was running. I knew what kind of run form I was in, so I was pretty confident of that. So I thought I just need to get him to contribute as much to the chase as I can. So I'm like pumping him up, like, oh mate, you're riding so strong. Like let's keep going. And then I could tell that when he was on the front, the pace was kind of like a little bit slower than what it was when I was on the front. So then I said to him, mate, just do what you can. Just give me a break every like 5 or 6 minutes for a minute or so, 2 minutes. And then I could use that break to kind of get some drink in, get some nutrition in. And mentally it was like quite nice because you just break it down in like, right, I just need to work hard for 6 minutes and I've got a bit of a rest period behind him. So I was doing that. And then he was saying, oh, like, I don't know if I can do much more. And I said, yeah, you can. You're riding really well. Come on, we can catch him. Once we catch the lead group, you can sit in then. So he's like, all right, all right. And then he says, then he started going for a bit of a better patch when we did that loop, where you come off the main road, don't you? And you do this little
Yep.
8K, I think, dog leg kind of thing. He started riding quite strong there. And I said, you're going for a good patch again, mate. Now, come on. Like, let's keep it going. And he's like on the front, he's like putting in what he can. And then I think the final nail in the coffin was when we came back towards town, we saw Arnaud Gulot, who's been running really well. Like he puts his training on Strava. You could see that he was in really good form. And I said, we need to make sure we don't take that guy with us. Um, so as we were catching him, Ben put in a massive dig. He went past. I kind of stayed back behind Arnaud. I saw Arnaud try and go with him, and I thought, oh, like when I go past him, I'm gonna have to make sure I put a big surge in. Otherwise, we're gonna end up towing him back into town, and we don't really want to do that. So
Yep.
then I put a big dig. I managed to drop Arnaud, bridge back up to Ben. But I think that surge that he did just allowed him not to recover anymore. And then
Yep.
he said, I don't think I can do anymore. I don't think I can do anymore. I'm like, yes, you can. Come on, keep going, keep going. And then unfortunately, about 10 minutes later, I looked behind and he's no longer there. And I think he ended up losing 10 minutes in like the last 25K. But yeah, it was I
You
was
got
just basically
skippered.
yeah, I was basically just egging him on the whole time. It'd be great to get his point of view. I mean, I was like gutted when he did go because it actually made me slower the rest of the ride because it was like I didn't have that person. And I think had he been able to stay with me for the last bit, we would have caught the group with Jack Moody
Yep.
because we got down to about a minute and a bit, and just having someone else there, because you were kind of thinking to yourself, well, I don't want to do a shit turn on the front. I need to make sure it's decent because I've got someone else there. But then when you look back and you like thinking, right, it's their turn now, and you look back and there's fucking no one there, you're like, oh shit, it's just me now.
Well, again, really, really well done. It was a good result. But yeah, Ben Hill did ride himself to the front of the race. So let's talk about Geelong 70.3. Now, I'm not sure if you remember our picks, but I know that one of your picks, which was the former pro cyclist Jimmy Whelan, who made his pro debut at Geelong 70.3, I think you picked him for third place. I think I said that he would not feature, and not many people would discuss his performance. We're about to discuss it now. Let's start with Jimmy Whelan. He was certainly, I guess, an X factor or an interesting name on that start list to see what he was able to do. What do you think of Jimmy's debut 70.3?
His swim, he lost quite a bit of time, didn't he? Was it like
28
6 minutes?
minutes. 28
Yeah,
minutes. So I think he lost 7 minutes, to be honest, or like, yeah, six and a bit minutes. Like it was a big, big deficit. He was 28:48 out of the swim, where I think the leader's like 21 something. I know I can't find Matt Hauser's off the start list because Hauser DNF'd unfortunately, but yeah, he was
21:28. So yeah, he
yes.
lost 7 minutes on the swim. Yeah, that's a bit more than what I would expected. Like I didn't think he would lose 7 minutes. I thought maybe 4 to 6,
Mhm.
maybe like 5 minutes, I think, probably something like that would have probably been what I was expecting.
Yep.
I guess like I thought, but I guess when you're like that kind of speed, it's easy to actually completely miss any kind of pack, isn't it?
Yep.
Because a lot of people are swimming like 25, 26 minute pace, but if you're 28 minute pace, it's like you haven't got that get out speed because you're not used to swimming. You can end up completely isolated for the whole thing.
What do you? I'm assuming that the women probably started a couple of minutes behind. To be honest, they normally start. Is it 2 or 3 minutes after the men, or is it five?
That's
Because to
true,
be
actually.
honest,
Yeah, they would have gone through.
even if it was 5 minutes, this is the like looking at like Natalie Van Coevorden who won the race. She swam a 23, so she would have passed him. So he actually would have had a decent number of the female pros. I'm just looking quickly as well. Hannah Berry, who, maybe, yeah, she swam 23 too. So there would have been a pack of women that would have swum past him. So he would have had that opportunity to go with it. But I mean, you look at their pace, they're swimming, 114 pace. He was swimming 130 pace. I don't think he could have gone with them if he wanted to be honest. So yeah, like, to be honest, this is not an attack on him. I think what he's doing is absolutely incredible, but he's barely been a swimmer. Like, so he's very, very early days in the pool. This isn't to discredit him or anything like that. I think he's going to definitely sharpen up very, very quickly. But yeah, he did lose a lot of time in that swim.
Yeah, and then on the bike, I thought that he would probably. I mean, it's hard to say how fast you think before the race he would bike compared to lead group because you don't know whether or not motos are going to affect the race. But then because some people, like I said like earlier, that Ben was able to bridge across from like being 2 minutes down out the swim to like the front group means that the motos couldn't have really been too much of an effect because that would just never happen otherwise.
Mhm.
So and obviously couldn't have been too bad. So I would have expected in that situation maybe to ride fairly similar. He's quite a smaller guy, so his obviously power is not going to be too high compared to some of the guys because he's more of like a climber kind of person, and this course is completely flat. So some of the bigger athletes in there would have more absolute watts. But then I would have thought with his background being like pro cycling, he'd be really up to date on like aerodynamics and have a lot of expertise in that area, which would really help him on a course like
Yeah.
this. So I thought, yeah, he would probably bike within, I guess, around the same as the top guys, to be honest. Like,
He wasn't too
and then
far
I
off. He was about a minute back, I think, from Jelle Geens. And I mean, obviously Ben Hill rode sort of 3 minutes into those guys or 2.5 minutes into those guys. So he was there or thereabouts with, I think, with the chunk of them. But again, you consider that they would have been working together as a unit, where he would have probably been doing most of it solo. Yeah, to be honest, he probably did a bit of an individual TT almost the whole way, I'd imagine.
yeah. And then the run, like he's in really good run shape, like standard run shape. I think he was on for like a 103 in Barcelona half marathon, but he had to stop at like 17K. So he probably would have like run 63, 64 minutes, had he have been able to like finish the race. I thought, I mean, it's hard to say because I said when I was talking to you, didn't I? Like on the one, what we did where we previewed it, you don't know how much someone who hasn't got a background in triathlon is going to drop, like fade,
Yeah.
starting the run because it's so different. So I thought best case scenario, if he's like really responds well to running off the bike, he could run 66, 67. That's like best case. And then worst case could have been anything like 75, 76 minutes, something like that. So 71 is for your first one. I mean, that's
Good
still
debut.
pretty decent, but like when you're 63, 64 minute half marathon, I mean, you'd obviously hope to run a bit better, wouldn't you? If you can run 63, 64 for a flat one.
Well, I think if you take, let's take, let's assume his swim was where the others were. He would have taken 7 minutes off. He's still like, he's definitely up there. I think we're talking about him probably being in the top 10. So I think for a debut 70.3, it's a really good result. I mean, the other point, again, we've discussed this offline a few times already this week. I think that the thing that when you look at this without context or as an outside observer, I suppose, I feel like his performance on the bike, and it's probably going to be a little bit contradictory considering what Ben did, but I think it shows the standard of cycling in triathlon is actually really, really high too. I think it's very easy for pro cyclists to come into the sport and just say, oh, we're obviously going to dominate the bike. I think they probably underestimate just how good you guys are as pro triathletes. I think the level of cycling pro triathlon is very, very high these days. Across all disciplines. Like I know a lot of people think short course isn't very hard. Like I think basically if you're a professional triathlete these days and you're riding a bike, I mean you have to. It's a very high standard.
Yeah, no, I totally think that as well because I mean we've seen with Cam who had been combining the two in previous years past, like where he'd been riding for Ineos and doing some stage races and helping them. I mean, he was riding Paris-Roubaix, wasn't he, the other year? I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but and he was like up there starting the first cobble section. So, but then in some of the triathlons, he's not even getting the fastest bike split.
How
Um,
about his
you know,
swim? Jesus, how about Camworth's swim?
Incredible, like
Yeah,
massive improvement. 48 seconds down against those guys in the water is amazing, and that
110
bodes so
pace.
well for them. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
110.
not,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. It's like it's not. But it just. I mean, again, I think it shows that he's always had that potential. He's probably just able to focus a bit more on the swim now.
I mean, I would have thought before this race, if you'd have asked me how much time I think Cam would have lost, I would have said 2.5 to 3 minutes
Same.
before the race. Like that's what I would have expected. And I thought best case scenario for him, 90 seconds. Worst case could have been 4 minutes,
Mm.
against like people like Matty Hauser and like, a C swim. And I think I listened to Jelle Geens and Aaron Royal's podcast where they talked about Cam, and they even thought that he was going to be out the water too far behind, that he wouldn't be a factor on the bike. But had he not had the mechanical at the start where he was stuck in one gear, he would have probably bridged up to that lead group, because I mean his transition was bad though. Like when you looked at his transition, he lost another 30 seconds on the swim.
Mm.
So he really does need to brush that up and get out. If he'd have got out of transition 48 seconds back, bearing in mind there was like 15, what was it, 15 people in the front group, roughly 10, 15.
Yep.
The effect of that would have been that they would have been probably what 20 seconds, 15, 20 seconds from front to back, by the time they start the bike. So if Cam had have got out of transition 48 seconds down what he ended the swim at, he would have only had to bridge 20 seconds to make the back of that front group, which wouldn't have been hard for him. I think he could have done that like in the first 5, 6K, hit it really hard because he would have seen them only 300 meters up the road.
Yeah.
So yeah, and also I would say if he can do that in a 70.3, then an Ironman is not gonna go out as hard as what people like, Matt Hauser and Taylor Reid are taking out a 70.3 and a beat start, are they? A
Yeah.
run into the water and taking it out hard. I think that's probably like on paper one of the worst starts for Cam,
Hmm.
having a run in like that, against those guys. So I think if he races Ironman Texas, I mean, I can't see him racing South Africa this week, can you? Like
I
with
think
all
I
the
saw
stuff.
him. I think I saw on another start list. It might have been Tripole. They'd actually scratched him. So I think he's not. I don't think he's racing South
Yeah.
Africa.
So if he races Texas, I could actually see him doing really well there, like getting out the water right towards the front. The bike course for him is, I think, pretty decent. Like looking at the kind of courses that he does well on the bike, that could be
Yep.
quite a good one for him. And then yeah, he's normally pretty solid, isn't he, on the run? Like in an Ironman, he could run
He's very
2:45, something like that.
consistent. Yeah. Very
Yeah,
just
he's
a very
consistent.
consistent runner.
I think not having all the commitment to doing the stage races for him is great because in the past, having to do all these like random stage races isn't going to help your triathlon career, is it? Not being able to swim properly for a week here and a week there. And even if you are able to swim or do a bit of running during a stage race, you're not doing threshold sessions, are you? And you're not doing track sessions in the middle of a stage race cycling.
No.
So every time you have that, it's such a disruption to your training because you can't just, you need the consistency, don't you, of doing like regular threshold sessions, tempo sessions, and all that. You can't just be like, oh, right, I'm doing a stage race for Ineos now. I'm not going to do a threshold session or a hard swim or run for 10 days, 2 weeks, because obviously you can't just do a flipping track session the day before you start a 1 week stage race, can you? And you can't probably
Yeah.
do it the day after if you want to get any quality. So even if you go to a week stage race, what is it realistically, 10 or 11 days without a proper hard bike, run or swim session? And yeah, you might be working the bike, but triathlon's more than just a bike, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
you lose all that time on the swim or you can't run, then it doesn't really matter what you bike.
Now let's turn our attention to the front of the race now, because we had. I'll go through results. Yelle Geens in first place, Jake Birtwhistle second, Taylor Reid third, Cameron Main in fourth, and Ken Janina in fifth in the men's race. The first four men all ran under 110, which we were discussing on your podcast. That is probably not going to be the case this early in the season. Uh, I am blown away by Yelle Geens' running 107, or basically a 108 in March. I think it's a really interesting sign of what's to come for the rest of this year, and I think that we're seeing that middle distance benchmark has been risen again.
Y- Yeah, I think to do that so early in the season definitely shows that he's like started the season where he left off last year.
Yep.
Because I mean he raced Oceanside last year in April and I think he only ran a 111, something like that, off the bike. And I would say there was quite a few races during the season where he wasn't really running that quick. Like I don't think he ever really had a good run all season until, like I would say a good run by his standards. Like he wasn't running under 70s in the 70.3s. I think even when he did ZLMC, he was probably running 73, 74, something like that, around that
Hmm.
kind of thing, off the bike. And then when he got to Vegas T100, that was the first run where he actually ran like to his potential that you thought
Yep.
he might run at, where he outrun Marten Van Riel. I think he was the first person, wasn't he, to beat Martin
Yep.
in a
Correct.
T100 race. And then after that, he had 70.3 worlds. What was it, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. After, well, actually, no, then there was Dubai, wasn't there? But he
Yep.
didn't go to
So,
Dubai. But then in obviously 70.3 worlds, he won it, ran Hayden down, ran 67. And then obviously having a bit of a season break and then getting into this one, I thought he might run 68, 69. Didn't really think like a 67 because I just thought that he would not be running as quick as what he was in 70.3 World. So yeah, it's really surprising. I guess when he's in top form, he's going to surely be hoping to run 66 something. If he's doing 67 now, wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
But then
100%.
also, but then also it makes you think. I did hear on his podcast that they said that the bike zone of 12 meters, the Ironman draft limit with Race Ranger is so much smaller than what you think. And normally they said it seems like the gap that people are leaving is probably like 15 meters. But when you have Race Ranger on, 12 meters is absolutely tiny. And they were complaining, him and Aaron, that the bike was so easy sitting in that you actually got bored on the bike.
Wow.
Like, and the thing was, you had to go on the front in the pack just to make it a bit more interesting because otherwise you were just literally you were just in a pace line riding along, but like putting no effort in, just getting dragged along, and you're kind of like, they said it neutralizes the bike because I think Aaron said at one point, or Jelle Geens said at one point, he went to the front, there was a bit of a hill, and he pushed it hard up the hill, pushed it over the top, and thought, I'm just going to try and split it up a bit and make people work because this is the only chance we've got. And he said he put a lot of effort in, and then he looked behind, and everyone was still there, and he
Wow.
thought,
Okay.
there's no point in doing this. So I guess it shows that, like, the speed was quick on the bike,
Mm.
but being like sixth or seventh place, I can imagine, like, for instance, say I was there. I can imagine on the front I'd be doing 340, 350, but then sat in like sixth or seventh place, I might be doing like 260, 270. So maybe one of the reasons why they're running so quick is because the bike was so easy so like you can run faster because you haven't had to work as hard on the bike compared to what you might have done in some of these other races. And that just shows that like the T100 racing is really leading the way because with the 20-meter draft zones, you get it broken up. You never get big pace lines. And they were both saying that Ironman need to do something about this because it was a joke. Not because anyone was doing anything illegally, but just because it was just so easy at that drafting distance on a to stay in a pack with all these like new TT bikes and the speed you're going. Because that's the thing, isn't it? Like if people are only averaging 38 k's an hour, the percentage you save in watts isn't as much, is it? But
Yeah.
the higher the speed, because obviously the relationship with like aerodynamics is cubed, isn't it? The faster you go, it's not a linear relationship with how much power you need to go to increase your speed. So when you go on much faster speeds and you're in a pace line, the amount of watts you can save can be huge compared to what you would save at say 35 k's now. If we were going 20 k's now and we were all keeping like 12 meters, it would probably be fairly similar power, wouldn't it? But you go 50 k's an hour and you're in like, and there's like eight of you, and all the other people are breaking the wind before you go through, you could save an extreme amount of watts. And it's not
Yeah.
really racing, is it? If we're getting like basically, oh yeah, you have a good swim, and then you can sit in the bike and ride 250, 260 watts. Is that really what we want to see triathlon, or do we really want to see it testing all three? I mean, to be honest, I'd rather just see and test all three equally, and you can't really have any weaknesses. But like, what's the point in having a bike of 90k if it's that easy and people are able to stay there? Just shorten it to 20k. It's like, boy, it's not doing anything to anyone, is it? It's just making it more boring because you're just watching people sat there pedaling 250 watts.
You've done races with Race Ranger. Have you found the same thing where the draft zone is a
Yeah,
lot shorter than you thought it was?
what 12 meters is way too short,
Yeah.
way too short, and it actually feels way shorter than what you think. That Race Ranger has had the opposite effect, where people thought Race Ranger would make people actually stay further away because they
Hmm.
were getting too close. But in actual
That's
fact, Race Rangers made people get even closer because you realize how short the distance is. Because I think
yeah.
when they say 12 meters in Ironman rules, there's 12 meters from the front of the bike to the front of the bike. So it's
Yeah.
actually 10 meters. And yeah, it looks so small when you're actually in the pack and you're like, holy shit, like you can really sit close to someone here. And like, yeah, like it's ridiculous. I don't understand what Ironman's problem is with making it bigger. Like, what's the big deal? Like you just they change rules with anything, don't they? Like
Even if it's different for the amateurs and the pros, like I think that's I mean that's this is a kettle of fish we could always go into, but I think that I can understand I not necessarily agree, but I can understand the limitations around a age group race where there's so many competitors on the course. But when you got a pro field of 50, I
I
think
mean, age
100%.
groupers, it doesn't really matter anyway because everyone's so differently like paced, aren't they? It's
Yep.
not off, but like they soon change rules when it comes to bottles and everything like that, don't they?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the problem, right? Instantly change, boom. From now on, this is the case. But with draft rule, I don't see what the problem is. It's not even affecting them, is it? It's
Mm.
just like all you do is just program Race Ranger for 20 meters and that's it. Job done. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing more you need to do.
Keep telling him, Joe. Maybe we'll get there because I think, I mean, yeah,
I've given up on telling them, mate, but that's why I do race. That's why I've decided to pick races which aren't really like got loads of motos in for the TV coverage and on harder courses. If I
mm,
see a race on a course like this, I just don't do it because I know how much of a joke it is. So it just basically makes people think, well, what's the point in picking a course like this? Because it just totally doesn't play into my strengths. Like if you end up bridging up like Ben Hill does, you're probably cooked starting the run because you've actually had to ride really hard on a flat course to bridge the gap of 2 minutes. And if you and then that's if you can do that, and if you can't do that, then you're basically going to be getting off the bike 2 minutes down. But the guys in front, some of them might have only been riding like a nice high zone two effort, and then they start the run, and of course they can run really fast because if you do a running at zone two after a zone two bike ride, or you do a run off the bike at a true 70.3 effort, it's a completely different feeling. It's like night and day, isn't it? Running
mm,
a hard half marathon off a hard 70.3 bike is tough. Running it off a zone two bike would feel like a nice warm up before doing a hard run,
yeah.
you know.
Um, Another person that we spoke about on your show, Jake Birtwhistle, came second. I'm really happy to see Jake have this race. I was saying it to you that like I feel like he's this athlete that has this incredible potential, which we just don't really, we haven't in the past seen come to fruition. Yeah, he came second to the Ironman 70.3 World Champion, but I still think running a sub 109 on that course, finishing second for Jake is a really strong result. And again, same thing at this early in the season, I think it bodes well to see him set himself up for a good year.
Yeah, no, that was a really good result from him. I mean, I don't really know too much about Jake because he doesn't post that much, does he? And you don't see him race that much like the 70.3s in Europe, do you? He
No,
kind
he
of
doesn't tend to travel
he's
much.
been Yeah, he's kind of been sticking to like Australia or around that kind of area racing. But yeah, that was a decent performance. And I mean, to be honest, all those guys did really well because anyone who's like finishing close to Jelle Geens, like obviously like reigning world champion in a 70.3, then they're going to be like a contender in some of the biggest races.
Yeah. Now, the guy came third, Taylor Reid. This is somebody that I'm actually disappointed we didn't talk more about in the preview that we did. But I've known Taylor Reid for a couple of years now. I was with him at Super Tri or Super League in Malibu a couple of years ago. He was on the team that I was managing. I saw him race the Laguna Phuket Tri last year. I think he came second to Hayden Wild. And when I saw this result, I was like, of course. To me, Taylor Reid actually has the potential, I think, to be a real powerhouse of middle, more probably specifically long distance race. And I think that he is, he's that big sort of. To me, he looks like the sort of guy that's going to be able to drop a really good, powerful bike ride. He's a very good swimmer, and he's obviously a very good runner. Like he was always sort of competitive at Super League, but never, sort of front pack. And then at, WTCS and World Cup races, we've seen him there or thereabouts. But again, same thing, not quite at the front. And I think that he could, with a couple of years of, mastering the art sort of thing, I think he could be really good. Probably more Ironman than 70.3, but I think he's going to be a real powerhouse of long distance racing.
Why do you think more Ironman than 70.3
I
for
just
him?
get I get the impression that the bigger guys tend to probably perform a little bit better. They don't. I'm not sure whether it's something to do with the muscle mass or something, but I mean he's still running a sub 110 in a 70.3. But like he's a big boy. He's a big tall
Do you
boy,
think
and I
Do you think that's due though to the fact that the bike's becoming easier and easier in 70.3s because of the
potentially.
draft and zone and stuff like that? So basically, it becomes down to more of a running race, and not like a strength race. Where you get off the bike and it's like you have to run fast, but you're pretty cooked because of the bike. Because obviously, if a lot of people can save their energy on the bike, then it's just going to become closer to more of like an all-out half marathon effort or run
Mm,
effort than how well you can run off a hard bike. Because that's the thing, isn't it? Like age group racing and pro racing is going to be totally different. The age groupers are going to be smashing the bike and then trying to run a good half marathon. Whereas the pros now, it's like have a good swim, set yourself up in the pace line, save as many watts as possible, run a good half marathon, starting off feeling not that bad because you've saved so many watts because of the packs and everything,
yeah,
you know? So it'd be interesting to see. I think the T100 is more legit, isn't it? If you
in
want to
terms of
see
that, it
how
is.
good
Yeah,
someone is, like over like a 70.3 distance kind of thing, like how well-rounded they are. Because I feel like with T100 ones, you can't really have a weakness. Like
mm,
if you make the front pack on the swim, like we saw with Jason West, but then you can't bike, you're in no man's land. You're shot out at the back starting the run. That it doesn't matter if you're a great runner. So it'd be interesting to see how well he could do, would you say, at like the T100s to see whether or not he would be more suited to Ironman or 70.3,
yeah. I
if he
mean,
does a T100.
I think you make a really good point. And I mean, the other thing with the T100 races, let's use Singapore as an example. Take the heat away. It is not an easy course. Like there's a lot of climbing. It's very technical. I think that not all of their races, some of their races are pancake flat and a bit boring, but some of their races, like the Singapore race, San Francisco, if it happens, they're quite tough, challenging courses. So I think you put that together with the big draft distance as well. Yeah, you're right. I think you're going to get a much better representation of where people are at, and I also think it shows just how impressive some of those athletes like a Marten Van Riel are because they're able to do what they're doing without all those factors you've spoken about. Because Martin's done a few Ironman 70.3s and he's done one Ironman, but he's won all the 70.3s he's done, but he's never seemed to have that same dominance, I suppose, if maybe that's the right word, that he has had at T100. So I think it's actually, with the context of what you just said, makes some of those performances even more impressive.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
The last thing I want to talk about in the men's race is Braden Curry. Braden was, what was he? He was in seventh place. He was 4.5 minutes back, round of 112. I think looking better than he was last year. Hopefully, we're not going to see the same Braden Curry we saw last year because he seemed to suffer a little bit as a result of trying to chase the Pro Series.
Yeah, I think that was pretty solid for Braden, considering like he didn't race in New Zealand because he didn't really have enough time to get fully fit from it. So he's not going to be anywhere near what he would probably class as like his best shape, is he? Like I think he's going to be building because he had such a big year last year in terms of the amount of racing, the traveling and everything. So I think like I mean from talking to Kyle Smith, who went and did some training with him in Wanaka, he was like pretty much starting from scratch in like February time. So he's
Mm.
only really probably had 5, 6 weeks of actual training. And I think like to swim like that shows that like he's sorted, isn't he? Like I wondered if he'd be able to stay with those guys in the swim, but it shows that like he can basically make the front pack in any swim. So like for the rest of the season, he's fine in that area. The
Yep.
bike, obviously he managed to ride um, with the front pack. How hard it was is up for debate. I guess it depends where you were in the pack and what you were doing. Like you could save energy and probably sit on the back and save a lot of watts if you were trying to break away. You're obviously going to be working quite hard, and obviously it wouldn't have come to anything. And then the run, a 112, I would say is like okay for Braden. It's like average. I think he can run a lot quicker, but he's obviously done a lot worse in some of them. Like, but considering he's only had like 5, 6 weeks of training, I think that's a good starting point because, give it another 6 weeks. If he was really, able to train really hard, you'd like to see him take another minute, 90 seconds off that run. Then he's into the 70s, isn't he? And then he's kind of
Mm.
like threatening the fourth and fifth place in a 70.3 against those guys. And I think he's better suited to the full distance, would you say? If it's
100%. Definitely.
like, yeah, so like a course like Texas, if he can get in a group, save his energy, start the run a 240, could be threatening the top five, top three in Texas. I'd say
Mm.
if he can keep building and is in good form when it comes round.
Yeah, we love to see it. The women's race. So, first place, Natalie Van Coevorden. Second place, Hannah Berry. Third place, Grace Thick. Fourth place, Regan Hollyoak. Fifth place, Chloe Lane. Now, Natalie Van Coevorden made the transition fully this year from short course, long course. She raced Paris last year, but she had done some 70.3s previously. Hannah Berry, we know, didn't race New Zealand either because she's doing the T100 this season. And then Grace Deck is actually making her a full distance debut at Challenge Roth this year. I thought it was great to see Natalie Van Coevorden get that win. I think I said to you that I was curious to see. I always do like to see how those transitions happen for athletes. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I think she's made a change to her coaching recently as well. But yeah, really, really great to see Nat get that result, that win. What are your thoughts about the women's race?
Yeah, I was pleased to see Hannah Berry up there, top three. I think like taking the decision to go for the T100. I mean, that's quite a brave one for her because she's obviously been traditionally more of an Ironman athlete, and I know
Mhm.
from seeing her in Taupo, she's been like really training specifically for it and wants to actually do it justice. Not like she's not like taking the T100 contract to try and get some easy money and then like sacking it off, and training properly for, and actually training for Ironman races. She's genuinely giving it a good shot. So I think that's good for her to kind of open the season like that. And I think she was only just beaten on the run, wasn't it? It wasn't much in it. So that was good. That Natalie as well. Like if she's just actually fully transitioned, I didn't realize she'd fully transitioned because she raced one of the while I was out in Taupo, one of the draft legal sprint races. The one that was in New Zealand. So Yeah,
Did
if
she?
she's
Wasn't that Nicole Van der? I don't think Natalie Van Coevorden did.
oh right, yeah, I'm getting confused. I'm getting
Hmm.
confused between the
Too
two.
many
Oh
double
right.
barrel last name short course
Yeah,
athletes.
because they're both New Zealand, aren't they?
Nah,
Like, are they
that's
both?
Australian.
No.
Don't be saying that,
Oh,
mate. Get us
oh,
cancelled.
right. Yeah, I will. Yeah. No, I've got. Yeah, that was confused. That was confusing me. That was. Yeah, the New Zealanders and Aussies, both the same, aren't you? Like, to be fair, like
Yeah, I know that's true. Just like you and the anyway.
us in the Welsh, we even got a problem with that. As the Welsh that have got a problem,
I
all the
was about
Scots.
to say that, and then I
Like,
realized that it wouldn't have been insult, so I just stopped.
yeah, but no, yeah. Now I was getting confused. Then, oh, right. So that makes sense. So yeah, for um. for her then to win if she's fully transitioned to 70.3 racing, that really sets her up for a good season and to beat Hannah, who is going for the T100. It will be a good, I think it will be a good confidence booster for her when she sees how well Hannah does in Singapore. Because
Mm.
if she sees Hannah do a really good race and is up there in Singapore, then you think, fuck, well, I've just beaten them in a 70.3. So if they're doing it,
Well,
then there's no reason
you
why I can't.
this is one of the I'm actually really disappointed she didn't get a wild card for Singapore, to be honest. And again, not to discredit the wild cards that they gave out for the women's race, but I definitely think that Natalie Van Coevorden is one of the things I really like that the T100 is doing this year is that they're bringing in so many of those short course athletes. We've seen in the women's race, you've got Jess Learmont, you've got Kate Woff's got a hot shot, you've got Taylor Spivey, Flora Duffy. And then in the men's race, when you look at like Tyler Mizachuk's a top 10 finisher at the Olympics and a three-time Olympian. I really feel like they could have probably done that a bit better with the women's race. And an athlete like Natalie Van Coevorden, I think, would have been a perfect sort of example. Now, I'm not sure. Maybe there's a conflict in thing or her schedule didn't work out. I'm not sure. But I feel like not having that there in Singapore was a missed opportunity, to be honest.
Yeah, and also coming out of an Australian summer, and being Aussies are normally good in the heat anyway, and coming out of an Australian summer, it's like you're gonna have been training in some decent heat. So going
Yeah,
into Singapore would be absolutely fine. It would actually be for an Aussie, getting racing at the end of your summer after training in the heat all summer is going to be the perfect opportunity for you,
it's a
isn't it? You
different heat
know,
in Singapore,
so
mate. That
different.
Singapore heat is something evil.
I know,
It's
yeah, but I mean, like coming from like Europe, like you really have to do some proper heat prep, and there's nothing like it, is there? I mean, like we've got
yeah.
like 10 degrees, and if we're lucky, we get a bit of sun. Like half time, it's like flipping pissing it down. So it's like I see all the people in Europe, they're trained
I'm
in flipping tents, mate, in their like house.
I'm still trying to get you to Asia to train, Joe. I'm still trying to get you to Asia. Now, with the women's race, I guess the main thing of interest for me, apart from, as we sort of touched on those two results, but Grace Steck came third, actually outran Natalie Van Coevorden by 5 minutes. She ran a 118 or a 119 basically compared to Nat's 122 and Hannah's 123. So I thought that she's obviously in absolutely red hot run form, which again, she's doing Challenge Roth this year. I think that, I'm assuming the longer the distance, probably if she's, again, I think of Grace Steck as kind of like a strength athlete, kind of. I think it could be, yeah, interesting to see what she does for the rest of the year. But a great, great season opener for her as well.
Yeah, that is a very good run. But she must have lost a lot of time on the bike.
I'm just having a look at that
'Cause
right now. She rode a 2:19:50, so she rode a 2:20 compared to Hannah Berry's 2:40. So she lost 5 minutes on the bike.
yeah, I
And the
mean,
swim, 23 minutes on the swim, 20, yeah, a minute and a half on the swim as well. So she was sort of chasing all day. I'm assuming she probably did a lot of that bike TT individual as well. So I say it, I
and
have
I
no
would
idea.
say,
You couldn't watch
I
it.
mean,
So
like, yeah, the run's really good and the swim's obviously really good with her. But to be losing 5 minutes on the bike against those girls, like who are like obviously decent cyclists, but they're not like a Taylor Nib, are they? So,
no, it's true.
she definitely needs to work on that. It'd be interesting seeing her what she looks like on the bike. Like, is she losing it with like more power? Does she need to improve? Is it like her aerodynamics and equipment? I wonder where she can get something because 5 minutes over a 70.3, it's got to be like a good like 20 watts, isn't it? 30 watts,
Yeah, it's significant.
something like that. 30 watts maybe, at that speed. That's quite big, especially
Mm,
when you think like how small the girls are as well. Like it's probably like 10, 15% if you're probably 15% if you're a power increase you need or aero improvements.
I agree. Well, let's turn our attention now. That was Geelong. Let's turn our attention now to Ironman South Africa, which is happening this weekend. Huge, huge race. The first Ironman of the Ironman Pro Series this year. A much bigger field than we've seen. And, this has always been, a big race. You've done it a couple, or at least once. So we got COVID a couple of years ago. But, when we look at the start list, particularly men's race, Rasmus Svensson, Magnus Ditlev, Marten Van Riel, Leon Chevalier, Bradley Weiss, Matt Hansen, Cam Worth, or not Cam Worth, Mike Phillips, Jamie Riddle, Matt Burton. Uh, who else is there? There's Andy Horsfall Turner. Jonas Schomburg, Cody Beals. Some big names in the men race, women's race. We got Marta Sanchez, Mai Stage Nielsen, Els Visser, and Reichman. Sorry, I saw Ruth Astle is on there as well. Svenja Thos, like some big names, mate. It's a really positive start to the Pro Series this year. Uh, Now, one of the things I have been hearing is that the water might be a bit cold though.
Yeah, Leon said that today. Like the water was 13 degrees Celsius, and I thought he was taking the piss. And because I've been there before, and it was definitely nowhere near 13 degrees. And I said, "Is it really that cold?" And he said, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Flipping heck, that is absolutely
Do
freezing."
they
Like,
do they
surely,
do it? Wouldn't they shorten it or they cancel it?
well, I think that surely it's going to be shortened, isn't it? Like at 13 degrees Celsius, like
I
you
don't think
can't
you're
be
allowed
swimming.
to. I thought the minimum was. I think there's a minimum temperature for Ironman races. I wonder. Maybe he's just
I'm
taking
not
the piss,
saying
but
no, he reckoned it was definitely like that cold, and I've just put it in like to see what 13 Celsius is to Fahrenheit, because obviously like whenever they tell you at loads of these races in the pros, they always tell you like the cut off in like is like 70 something in Fahrenheit, and I have no idea what that is. Like you're probably the same as me, like
I have no idea.
that 55.4 degrees
So it's
Fahrenheit.
well under. So
That's
it's
like
well under.
it must be like the same temperature as what they swim in San Francisco, for the escape from Alcatraz.
Wow. I mean, this
That
is a
is,
race that's notoriously cancelled swim. It's not always a big
yeah.
factor. So,
Hold on a
but
sec. Well, just while you're doing that, I'm just going to put in World Triathlon. Let's put
rules. Now
swims.
you find that out. But like, I think that as again, we've sort of been through this on your show. But I mean, the big names, obviously, I've touched on. I think that we are going to see. Sorry, I didn't even say Marten Van Riel, or maybe I did, but I think Marten Van Riel is obviously the one to watch with this race. I think this is Martin's race to lose. He's doing this early to try to get a slot for Nice. I know that's a target of his this year. He's actually backing up. He's doing this, and then he's going to Singapore the week after the T100. So I think we're about to see him lose his second T100 race after Vegas last year. But I said this before. I really think the athlete. Let's assume the swim goes ahead and it's a full swim. I think Jamie Riddle is going to be a guy who can have a huge impact on this race. I think that his swim power. We see this guy not only lead World Cup races or World Series events, but by a significant margin. Like he's an exceptionally strong swimmer and a very good biker. So I think we're going to see that he's going to have a huge impact on this race, and it's going to be interesting to see the way that the race unfolds as a result of that.
But you know what I would say about Jamie Riddle is I watched his latest YouTube video yesterday, and we thought that he was going to be the one taking out hard and spicing it up on the swim, but he's only been swimming twice a week, he said, for the last like a couple of
Oh,
months
okay, okay,
because he's
must be
because
true.
he said, "What is it like? Is that bollocks then?"
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know. I
like,
don't believe anything that these guys say, to be honest. But I mean,
all
look,
right,
it could be possible. His swim is already at such a high level that maybe that's all he needs to do to maintain it,
because
or.
be, yeah, because he said on the video like he'd only been swimming twice a week, and at max three times a week because his swim was already that like top notch. But he said to be able to do this biking and run train that he needed to be competitive for the full distance, he thought I'm just going to cut it down, and he did this swim session on there. He didn't really say what times he was hitting, but he was like, "Oh, it's good to see that I haven't lost my speed and I'm still swimming good off two swims a week, 2 or 3 swims a week. Like, so I'm pleased with that." Yeah, and basically he was just saying that the reason he did it was because he wanted to work more on his biking and running, and he thought if he wanted to do well at the full distance or like non-drafting, he had to sacrifice that a bit to be fresher, I guess, to do the session. So like he's that throws a bit of a spanner in the works but then it also shows that like potentially, like you said, that he might be go out a bit too hard, and then well, if he has been doing a lot more biking and running, maybe that could make him a bit stronger, and he could actually be a real threat for this if because he's obviously been taking it really seriously to
Mm,
knock the swim down, hasn't he?
yeah,
You
definitely,
know,
definitely. I mean, like, I mean, look, full credit to him. We saw him. He did a series of 70.3s last year, and he was a bit not great to start. Like he built into it, right? Like he did Noosa. He faded on the run. Then he went to Melbourne. I think it was Melbourne. He maybe DNF'd in Melbourne. I can't remember. But he eventually went to Western Australia 70.3 and finished second to Gregory Barnaby, who ultimately won the Pro Series. And I think we see, he's certainly sort of learning the craft. And again, it's a theme I think a lot, right? Is a lot of these guys, they sort of need to learn the craft. My only question mark is just the fact that it's his first Ironman. But there's several athletes. Like Jonas Schomburg, same thing, is going to be in a similar situation. I think those two together have a very similar style of
I
racing.
I had a little look at the swim temperature cut-offs just to see just then,
Yep.
and it just tells you on there about like what temperature you have to wear a wetsuit at, but nothing what I could see to do with
Okay.
like the shortening of the swim. So if they have to do 13 degree, like swim in 13 degrees for a 3.8K swim, that is going to have, though, such a negative impact on some of these
Mm.
guys, and especially some of the guys potentially that are like good swimmers that are sitting in. Like, would Martin potentially have be affected by it? Because if he's a good swimmer and then easily able to stay on the feet and he doesn't want to leave the swim, will he get just flipping cold and then really
Mm.
struggle at the start of the bike? You know, someone like Leon Chevalier, who's generally working hard on the swim to minimize his gaps, it could suit him because he's working hard. His muscles are going to be warm. He gets out on the bike and he's actually not too cold from it. But I think even if you're swimming pretty hard, you're still going to be pretty cold by the time you get out after being in 13 degrees with a wetsuit on.
Hmm.
Um, so I wonder if like some of these guys that are good at swimmers that are just sat in the feet end up getting quite cold and then really struggling at the start of the bike, and it takes taking a while for them to come round if that is the case. And also some of the smaller guys as well in the field because they don't have as much fat, do they, to keep more and more muscle mass. So and the women normally really struggle in cold water, so that is definitely going to have some kind of huge impact on the women's race because traditionally they're the ones that struggle a lot more than the men in very cold water temperatures.
So, like I said, we've done a fairly in-depth preview on Junkyard Dogs, which again, I guess, guys, I'm trying to drive you to that podcast to give it a crack. Please go and have a listen or watch it on YouTube. I would actually like to talk a bit more about the women's race here because we didn't really get the chance to do it so much on that show. So, how do you see the women's race unfolding? Who are the ones to watch? How do you sort of perceive? And then we'll make some picks and we'll wrap it up.
Um, I mean, I think I'm not too sure on like who the fastest women are on the swim,
Hmm.
from that. But I know Els Visser,
She's
very
strong.
strong cyclist, and I know she's like going to lose a bit of time on the swim. She's probably a similar swimmer to Ruth Astle,
Okay.
and I know Ruth's strong on the bike, so I could see those two trying to ride themselves back into contention, starting the run. I think Maya Stage Nielsen's a bit better than them on the swim. So yeah, I mean, she might get swept up by those two girls. But I mean, for me, I can just having a quick look while I'm like talking about it. There's not a huge field, is there? There's only 22 of them in there, and that's on the start list. So there's going to be a few that don't turn up. I think the women's race is going to be probably in ones and twos. I can't see it being like big packs, so it's going to come down to a run. Like I said, with the swim temperature as well, if it is genuinely 13 degrees, I think that that's going to have such an impact on the swim that I feel like there could be someone who you wouldn't have thought about beforehand surprising and doing really well because some of the girls that are the favourites and typically who you expect to do well can just be so smashed after the swim that they just can't ride hard. And I find that sometimes if you feel like that after like if you get really cold, you can't come back from it. It's almost like, when you go in the heat in Kona, isn't it? Once you cross that red line and you get really hot, it's very hard to cool your body temperature down enough to do really well. And a similar thing can be when it's really cold, like your muscles just don't fire and you can end up losing so much time in a very short period of time on the bike.
What's the run course in South Africa? It's a long it's a long out and back sort of
It's a pretty
sausage
fast
course,
run
isn't it?
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just have like a little bit of a drag at the end of each turnaround point before you turn around and come back down. But I would say it's pretty quick. The only thing that you can be a bit affected by is the humidity. If it's like quite a sunny day and warm, it gets very humid there. But it
Hmm.
depends what the temperature's like. If it's 22 degrees and humid, it doesn't really affect you. But if it gets up to like 28 and it's like and then a humid day as well, then you definitely notice it. It definitely feels like quite tough to run in. Like when I did it last time, it was cold and wet on the bike, but then on the run, the sun came out, and then it felt like it was like such a mix because it was almost like it was cold conditions starting the bike. But then by the time we were into like 10K of the run, it was like hot and like
No,
very
no, that
humid,
was your
like
COVID,
totally
Joe.
different.
That was COVID hitting you. So it was actually normal temperature. Your body was just
Yeah,
you got the sweats.
yeah, probably, probably was. That was like really grim that run, like when I
Yeah.
was on that day.
I remember watching it thinking, oh, he's got this in the bag. No, he doesn't.
Thought I had it in the
Um,
bag. I started it in first place and thought, oh, this is going to be easy. Like I've bagged this race, no bother, because I was running so well in training, getting off the bike in first and then feeling absolutely horrific from the moment I touched.
Matt Troutman won it. Is that right? It was Matt Troutman, Bradley
No, it was
Weiss.
Carl Buckingham, mate, who's now an
Really?
electrician in Tucson. Yeah, so if you need any
Wow.
wiring in the house done, like give him a call.
Well, look, let's wrap it up this week because we've had you for plenty of time. I know you got a run to go do. You are heading to Oceanside next week. How nervous should Christian Blumenfeld be about you being on the start list against him?
Should be absolutely shitting a brick, mate. Like if he's got any sense about him.
You've
He's
got
training in a
your
flipping ski resort, isn't he? Like I look at
yeah.
what they're training, it's like flipping 2 foot of snow. I mean, like I don't know if he's training for cross country skiing or if he's training for triathlon. Like,
It's a Norwegian method, mate. That's what they do. I was in Norway
Norwegian
last week.
method.
It was absolutely freezing, so I can't understand why you'd go somewhere absolutely freezing to go somewhere more freezing.
Yeah, he's
Because
gone somewhere even colder than Norway, hasn't he? It's like, next he's going to be going to the North Pole because apparently there's a high mountain there.
I,
Biking's a bit dodgy, but just
you're chased by polar bears, mate. So it's good incentive to run
yeah,
faster.
yeah. There's
Uh,
no run track, but it's at 2,500 meters, so it's great oxygen. It's got great adaptation for altitude.
well, look, Joe, thank you so much for coming on this week, mate. Have a safe trip. I'm sure everybody looking forward to seeing you get out there and have a crack at Oceanside. You're then, I think the next race for you is Ironman Austria in June. Is
To
that
be honest, that's
correct?
the next big goal for me, Ironman Austria. Like in Oceanside, if I could, looking at the start field and how I've done in 70.3s, I think if I can make a prize money position, which is top 8, then that would be probably my best 70.3. So I'm going there, and if I can get in the mix and get a result around that, like well into the top 10, top 5 would be like best case scenario, and that would be by far and away my best 70.3. But if I can be somewhere around like top 6, top 7 in Oceanside, I'd be over the moon with that. And then I'm really kind of like looking ahead to Ironman Austria, to be honest. So kind of building my training up for that and looking to be in top form for June, July time, where I'm going to do a couple of races.
Perfect. One last thing before I let you go. You've launched your own triathlon experience, community, whatever you want to call it, team, Junkyard Dogs. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about what that's about?
Yeah, so I've released Junkyard Dogs on Patreon, and basically on there we're doing like exclusive content. So podcasts with some athletes. So for instance, this last week I had Andy Horsfall Turner on, and we went through like what kind of power he's looking to do on the bike and a much more in-depth analysis with like what he will do. And obviously I've done some of that myself. So when I raced in New Zealand, I did something with Tim where we broke down my power file. So we had the training peaks open and went really into the numbers, and like I was talking about what was happening at these specific times in the races, and then we were like highlighting the power that I was putting out, and same on the run, and looking at heart rate and just really in-depth analysis of how the race went, rather than your standard talking about how it went, but not actually with any context of the power or paces. And then also putting like training sessions on there, with like a video explaining a bit behind the session, and giving people sessions to do and some inspiration. So yeah, posting at least one thing, one bit of content each week, and if we can do more, then we're trying to do more. But yeah, it seems like it's going quite well so far, and just trying to make it entertaining and help people with some motivation and good training sessions along the way.
We saw the sneak peeks of the new JYD gear as well. So that's looking pretty good. Joe, a pleasure as always. At Not Another Average Joe on Instagram. Check him out on YouTube, all that stuff. Follow him, Tempo Skipper on Strava. I'm doing the plugs for you, Joe. Thank you very much, mate. I'll talk to you later.
Awesome. See you later, mate.
And we're back. Jimbo, you loved it. How good was that?
I mean, obviously, Joe is nothing compared to me, but
Who
he
is?
did a good job at filling some airtime. Good on him.
I do, like I said on the, but I really do like he has such a good race IQ and that insight that he gives. And I do love that we don't agree on everything. I know that we tend to not like he'll say something, oh, I don't know about that. I love he was like when I was on his show 2 weeks ago, we were talking about Geelong and he was saying that he thinks Jimmy Whelan is gonna podium. Jimmy Whelan's that former pro cyclist who turns his attention to triathlon.
Hmm.
And I said, I have a feeling that Jimmy will not feature and not many people will be discussing his performance. And Jimmy came 19th. So I love to point that out to Joe and be like, what were we saying, mate? Yeah. So, but yeah, it's always a good time to chat with Joe. I would encourage you guys to go and check out his new podcast, Junkyard Dogs. I think it's good. He's going to be doing a lot of interviews with pros when he's at races and stuff like that as well. So that's all good. Jimbo, mate, let's just get it wrapped up this week. You've got to get out of here. You've got to go and get on the road and do your fancy meetings on the top of BT Towers in your lovely blue blazers and all that stuff. Jimbo, if people want to find out more about talking triathlon, where do they need to go?
If you want to support this show, jump on at patreon.com/talking triathlon. If you want to follow Tim, he's at T414 on Instagram. I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram. We're at Talking Triathlon on Instagram, and we're also on YouTube, which is the best place to come and leave a comment and have a chat. But if you want to have a proper chat, join the Patreon group because you'll get access to the monthly bonus episode, and we'll put you in the WhatsApp group, which keeps everyone entertained forever.
Yeah, and
You
as
will
we said,
never leave.
we literally just recorded the bonus episode before this, so I think it was quite good. It was, I don't think anything too controversial. We introduced a new character, James Ford, who is our new hypothetical when we discuss anything, so we don't get in trouble. Don't get in trouble about naming actual athletes or other things. But yeah, it was a good time. We will be back next week to recap South Africa and preview. There's a few races to preview next week, actually. So we've got T100 Singapore, which I'm very, very interested
Oceanside.
in. Oceanside and Sir Bani Yas, Challenge Sir Bani Yas as well is happening, where you've got some athletes on that start list. Well, it's a big weekend, actually, next weekend. So should be good. But until then, James Bell, thank you very much. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, mate. Cheerio.